You are watching Illume TV, Igniting the Heart's Intelligence. This is Kelly Marlowe. Today I'm speaking with Magalie Bonneau, a world-class solo sailor, a producer of large-scale ritual arts that is filmed from the sky. She is leading the change that we wish to see in this world through creating large-scale beautiful acts of civic engagement and activism. Welcome, Magalie. Thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Became inspired with your work when a friend showed me a clip of the event that was created with 2,000 men and women at the Boon Festival in Portugal, where they all came together and they created this image of Mother Goddess. And at first I wasn't quite sure what I was looking at. I just saw people walking around the stand. Then as the footage went higher and higher from an aerial view, I realized that the 2,000 people had created this image of Mother Earth. And not only was it a beautiful image, it was a dynamic image. Like there were parts of the body that were moving because they were either dancing, maybe not dancing, but waving their arms in a way where you felt the energy of the Mother Goddess. And it was so beautiful and it's so inspiring. So can you tell us how you were inspired to even start creating something on this scale and how you were able to do it?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Wow, well, this all began when I was dancing under the stars for days and nights in Arizona. I was in a vision quest, asking the universe, what am I here for? And here I was dancing like the indigenous have done for thousands of years. And I was just coming out of a career as a professional athlete. As you mentioned, I used to be a world-class sailor and really in this place of transition. And as I was letting go and shedding layers of who I thought I was, there I received these visions of thousands of people on the earth, on the most beautiful, gorgeous place on the earth, honoring the beauty of Mother Gaia in sending these awakening message of what life is really about. And the messages were formed by these thousands of people that I saw. And not only were they sending a message, it was much more than verbal, but it was embodied. And it was sharing a new story of humanity, both in the message that is conveyed, but also in the way that we are unified together across cultures, across generation, races. And I just felt so deeply in my heart and in my body how it felt like. And I saw it was called Dancing Without Borders, and it was transforming what activism is all about and what it means to come together. It was like taking what we've seen through carnivals over the ages and processions and religions into a new way. Bridging like the power of the indigenous way into a new authentic way of community rituals. And here I was not a woman who knew myself as a woman of rituals. I was just in that week discovering even the power of rituals through this experience, dance experience. But it just landed back home so deeply that I knew this was meant to be.
So from my understanding, there was also an experience when you were this world-class sailor and you had entered the stadium. Yeah. And the energy that came from it. Can you tell us a little bit about that inspired you again too?
Yeah, thank you. Well, years after I started doing this kind of art, I was invited to open the Boom Festival with an opening ceremony. And it's that moment that I realized, like, what was the muse that brought me into becoming this world-class sailor and being on this Olympic quest was a seed that got planted when I was a kid and watched the opening ceremony and seeing all these people from around the world being feeling so alive and connected, coming from all these different countries and making beauty that was filmed from the sky. And somehow it really hit me, but unconsciously. And I just wanted to be part of the ceremony. And I was 17 years old when I was actually invited to be an ambassador for Canada as an athlete to represent my culture. I was not an Olympic athlete then, but I was still part of the ceremony. And something got planted. And it's one of those things over the years, you don't really know where life is taking you, and it becomes more like a spiral. But years later, 20 years later, it made total sense of this is what was, my muse was not so much to win the Olympics, but was to be part of this unified way of coming together to give everything we got. And at some point in my sailing career, I got disillusioned by this idea of just being the best. I realized what I really wanted was not so much to be at the top on the pedestal on my own, but I wanted to bring the world together to realize who we really are and experience our full potential. And this is what this art is all about, is to experience the sense of togetherness and connection and feeling connected to something so much bigger than ourselves that is part of this new story of civilization that's emerging through all of us. And I found this medium to create that experience.
So then, 20 years later, from that experience, you have this vision. It's of thousands of people. Mm-hmm. Okay, most people would be overwhelmed if they had a vision of thousands of people. Yeah. So how did that vision then evolve to this ritual art?
Yeah.
And then if you could tell us how that then led to the biggest event ever, right, in Portugal with 2,000 people.
Well, it was a mix of synchronicities and a mix of prayer. I really manifested it from a feminine place. At first, I literally just held it very close to my womb for 9 months. And literally, when you look at it, it's 9 months. So what it meant is I came out of this trance, shared it with my close circle, and then afterwards, just let it simmer, brew inside my own womb, and didn't try to figure out how I would do it. I just sat with it and let it grow, just like a baby grow. And at some point met a man in an award ceremony, environmental award ceremony in San Francisco. I had a very strong energetic connection with him. It's like I felt I could see him and he could see me, and I had no idea who he was. But the connection was there. We exchanged numbers. And as we started entering in contact on our very first call, I realized that he was an acclaimed artist who's been doing these aerial art that were filmed from the sky. And he felt also on his end so connected to me. He thought I was already somehow this accomplished woman in some kind of art. He didn't really know what I was about. He just felt something. And instantly, we felt a connection to do something together. And then months passed where we didn't try to find so fast what it was. We knew there was a connection. It would become clear as time would go on. And then Occupy started worldwide, the Occupy movement.
Occupy Wall Street.
Occupy Wall Street. And then all of a sudden, thousands of people were in the streets wanting to do something, wanting to get involved, wanting to protest, or wanting to do something. And there it hit me. It's like, wow, if I'm real with this, now is the time. Like, people are ready or ripe. So that's when I was like, wow, what do I do? And I felt, well, maybe I start with a flash mob. Flash mob has this power of bringing together in the streets through the power of art, but it has also this power of creating ripples worldwide through social media, through films. So I had never been part of a flash mob, never made a film, never made anything like this, but I said, like, let's just do it. So the first one had 100 people involved. We filmed it. It got lots of views. Over 200,000 people saw it within a few days on YouTube. And John, the creative partner I had just met months prior, was really inspired by what I wove together without his help. And then months passed by afterwards, and he was like, yeah, let's now start doing it. And he invited me to Rio and to South Africa. And then I had contacts with Boom to do something. And within 4 months, we traveled around the world and did 9 aerial arts on 4 continents, in average between 1,500 and 2,000 people. And it was always about reconciliation, whether it was in South Africa between those who had been oppressed for a long time and what I would say the most privileged people, to make the face of Mandela, to embody this story of interconnectedness. We're all in this together. Or whether it was in Rio during the Earth Summit, where we were giving a voice to the indigenous about this way of sharing a story where we're focused on renewable energy and not creating dams into the Amazon, or whether it was at Boom. And so the work kept evolving depending on which cause we were taking a stand for. And basically we were partnering up with those causes to amplify their message using the power of ritual and art and media, because this work was then broadcasted in the New York Times and many other large medias, whether it was online or in print.
So did you create the momentum through social media where people just came because they wanted to be part of it?
Yeah, in part through social media, in part through networks of those coalitions that we were partnering up with. And like at Boom Festival, we would be at a festival. So we used the power of drumming, of dancing to create this procession that just gathered people together. And we would start with 20 people, then 100 people, and within half an hour, 1,000 people are following this parade. Nobody really knows what they're following to, but they're just infused by wanting to be part of something. And then they would be invited into this gathering, follow this kind of labyrinth-like image, that because we would have thousands of stones on the ground that would tell them where to go. And they would have no idea what they're about to create a shape to. And it's only days later that they would see the image that was filmed from the sky that reveals this incredible, in this case, this earth goddess that we did at Boom.
So what I find incredible about the experience is that you're not igniting a protest or a riot, inciting a riot, right? Instead, you're showing people the beauty of coming together and connecting and calling and inspiring for change instead. Yeah. Through this beautiful aerial art that they come together and just being there. They just have to trust that something beautiful is going to come out of it. Yeah. And they're there for it. And it's unusual for our time, because I think everybody is, focused on the negativity, this is wrong and that's wrong, and there's like a lot of anger, right? Whereas at these events, it seems that they come with a goal or with a heart to inspire and to show that it can be done differently.
Yes.
Is that accurate to say?
That's right. Like, we're there to stand up for what we want to see in the world. Both the vision of what we want to see, but also how we want to show up together and by ourselves. So it gives us space for people to, give birth to a new story and also experience themselves as unified, as connected. Sometimes we feel unified through a protest. It's like, oh my God, here we are, we're all standing up for something. Or whether you're in a baseball stadium and you're all standing up because you're a fan of the Giants and you want them to win. But now here we are, we're standing up for life. Yeah, we're standing up for something so much bigger than ourselves, that we're not only wanting outside of ourselves, but we are Earth, like we are life. So it's a spiritual experience in itself.
But I also think that what's interesting is that you're sort of reframing the disconnected. So everyone always focuses on what's wrong, what's broken, what's disconnected. Yeah. But in this case, it's like the focus is on the fact that we are all connected,
Yeah.
right? In this collective experience, and to draw upon that rather than draw upon the opposite of unifying around the disconnected
Exactly.
experience.
We're all energy, right? And the question is, how do we use energy? Do we want energy to fight against and feed that disconnect? Or do we want to do like Aikido and use that energy to give birth to something new and use the power of each other's energy to create something so much more powerful? And it's amazing because in this case, we don't rehearse before we go into this. And yet, once we're in it together and people raise their arms, everybody raise their arms. So once we start to dance, everybody wants to dance because that's what our bodies already innately wants to do. And so all together, we create this coherent field that's not just talked about, but is experienced. And just that by itself is evolutionary and healing for everyone involved in ways that our mind later on catch up upon what just happened.
Yes, yes, and it catches up in an incredible way, right?
Yeah.
Realizing that they were part of something so big, but in a connected and beautiful way.
Yeah. People had tears and stories and visions, and so many incredible stories come out of it. People falling in love with each other, like people hugging each other. You never know. We're just in the process actually of making a coffee table book that will relate of some of the stories that has happened through these beautiful rituals. Because these, I've been involved for 3 years in those, but John, my creative partner, has been doing those for 20 years in about 200 places around the earth, from the Arctic to the Amazon and everything in between. So it's been so powerful. And here we are in this time now where we want to take it to a whole next level, including the power of sound, bringing sound together, drumming together, movement. Now technology is getting more advanced with drones, allowing us to really explore deeper this art. And so we have this this vision that we're working towards of bringing these into festivals and into different cities around the earth to transform the power of art. Giving festivals in cities a chance to support this civic engagement into a whole new emotional, spiritual level that is so fun, activating, and really, essentially, what we really want is to give a sense of people what it means to live on purpose and belong. Because so few, actually, we so often don't feel like we belong to this fabric, which is sad. And so, like, life is wanting us to feel that we belong. We just need to create the right condition that allows us to reconnect deep down inside.
So you're creating this beautiful fabric that anyone can join around the world.
Yeah.
And as I understand that, there's a new revolution you're creating it's called the 1 Billion Rising. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I've partnered up with Eve Ensler and V-Day, who's been taking a really profound stand about ending violence against women and girls and supporting the healing of our connection with men, women, and the earth. So I have been supporting this global movement by bringing the power flash mobs and dance, especially in the Bay Area. So that's one of the places where I've steeped my feet into.
Okay, so that's just one of them.
Yeah.
So if people want to be part of this, and they say, where do we go? How do we find out more so we can be part of it?
They go to dancingwithoutborders.org, and this is where they can sign up to a newsletter and then find out more as we send newsletters of where's the work going, how it's evolving, where they can plug in. And then soon we will launch a new website that will give a new place for where we will invite people, but people that are involved in Dancing Without Borders will know what this site is all about. We're just in the making of it.
You also lead workshops,
Yeah.
aside from the aerial art, and the civic movements that you're creating around the world. Can you tell us about your workshops?
Yeah, for those who wants to go deeper, like, there's so much power among men and women to go deeper together, to rediscover who we really are and what it means to come together in right relationships. I lead in Europe and in California and Canada those week-long workshops, sometimes 4 days workshop intensives that allows us to come together. Remember, it's really about remembering who we are and experience ourselves through the power of councils and rituals and dance and being in nature to connect to this intelligence that comes out of our bodies, nature connection and each other. So to find out more about that, people can go to shapingnewculture.com. And yeah, you're welcome to join us.
Yeah, I'd love to. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Magalie.
You're welcome. My pleasure.